On March 21, 1955, Albert Einstein sat down to pen a letter. His longtime confidant had just passed away, a man he'd known for over half a century, a man who stood by him from the very beginning. During the formative years when Einstein was developing the revolutionary concepts that would redefine physics. And within that letter, Einstein revealed a sentiment he had never expressed publicly before, a groundbreaking observation about mortality that would forever alter his perception of the universe. What I am about to share with you has been hiding in plain sight for decades. Physicists are aware of it. Philosophers debate it endlessly. Yet somehow, it never quite reaches everyday folks. Einstein discovered that death, as we understand it, might just be the greatest illusion of all. And he demonstrated it using the very same physics that gave birth to the theory of relativity. By the end of this video, you will grasp Einstein's true understanding of death. You will comprehend why he confronted his own mortality with such profound serenity just 1 month after composing that letter, and you will never look at death the same way again. But before we proceed, it's crucial for you to grasp something. The revelation I'm about to share isn't mere speculation. It's not mysticism disguised as science. This comes directly from Einstein's own words, his personal correspondence, his groundbreaking physics. The evidence is overwhelming, and yet it remains largely undiscussed. If you're still watching, you're prepared to embrace the truth. Most people shy away when confronted with ideas this profound. They prefer comfortable ignorance, but you are different. You are seeking what Einstein knew. Allow me to transport you back to March of 1955, Princeton, New Jersey. Einstein was 76 years old. His health was declining. He suffered from an abdominal aortic aneurysm that doctors had surgically reinforced years prior. But they knew it was only a matter of time. Then came the devastating news. Michel Besso had passed away. Besso wasn't just any friend. He was the sole individual Einstein explicitly thanked in his seminal 1905 paper on special relativity, the very paper that forever reshaped the landscape of physics. Einstein hailed Besso as Europe's most valuable sounding board for scientific thought. They had crossed paths as students, collaborated at the Swiss Patent Office, and remained close for over 5 decades. Upon learning of Besso's passing, Einstein didn't succumb to sorrow. He didn't rail against the unfairness of losing his oldest friend. Instead, he sat down and composed a letter to Besso's family, containing one of the most remarkable pronouncements about death ever penned by a scientist. Here's precisely what Einstein wrote. I will read it word for word, because every word carries significance. Now he has departed from this strange world a little ahead of me. That changes nothing. For those of us who believe in physics, the distinction between past, present, and future is only a deeply ingrained misconception. Read those words again, and let them sink in. That changes nothing. The distinction between past, present, and future is only a deeply ingrained misconception. Einstein wasn't offering hollow platitudes. He wasn't speaking metaphorically. He was articulating what he believed to be a literal truth about the very nature of reality, a truth that emerged directly from his own physics. Now, let me illuminate precisely what Einstein meant. Because if you can grasp this, everything shifts. In our everyday lives, time seems to flow. The past is gone. The future remains unwritten. Only the present moment exists. This seems so undeniably true that we rarely question it. But Einstein's theory of relativity unveiled something utterly shocking. Time doesn't operate the way we think it does. In 1905, Einstein published his special theory of relativity. 10 years later, he completed his general theory of relativity. These theories didn't just explain how time can slow down or speed up, depending on velocity and gravity. They revealed something far more fundamental. According to relativity, there is no universal now. What is happening right now for you isn't necessarily happening right now for someone else. Simultaneity is relative, not absolute. Think about the implications of this. If there's no universal now, then the very concept of the present moment is not as solid as we thought. Different observers, moving at different velocities, would disagree about what's happening now. This leads to what physicists call the block universe. Imagine the entire history of the universe, from the Big Bang to the end of time, as a single four-dimensional block: past, present, and future. All exist together. We don't experience all of time because we are embedded within it, moving along our world line, like someone reading a book, one page at a time. But the other pages don't vanish when we're not reading them. They still exist, and the pages we haven't reached yet also exist. We just haven't experienced them yet. This isn't science fiction. This is the standard interpretation of Einstein's physics, and Einstein knew it. When Einstein told Besso's family that the distinction between past, present, and future is only a deeply ingrained misconception, he wasn't speaking carelessly. He was conveying what his own physics had revealed. If the block universe is true, then Besso is not gone. His entire existence, from birth to death, is still there, embedded in the fabric of space-time. Einstein would simply meet him in a different part of the block. And indeed, Einstein joined him just 1 month later. Now, some might argue that Einstein was merely attempting to comfort a grieving family, that he didn't really mean it literally, but the evidence suggests otherwise. Philosopher Karl Popper met Einstein in 1950 and later recounted their conversation. Popper said he tried to persuade Einstein to abandon his determinism, which amounted to the view that the world was a four-dimensional Parmenidean block universe, in which change was a human illusion. Einstein refused to relinquish this idea. He held this view until the end of his life. And there's something more, something even more astounding. Einstein didn't just intellectually subscribe to the block universe. He lived it. He faced his own death with the same serenity he had expressed in that letter. On April 12, 1955, less than a month after Besso's passing, Einstein experienced severe abdominal pain. His aneurysm was rupturing. Doctors recommended emergency surgery. Einstein declined. His exact words have been preserved. He said, "I want to go when I want. It is tasteless to prolong life artificially. I have done my share. It is time to go. I will do it elegantly." Ponder those words. I will do it elegantly. This isn't the response of someone consumed by fear of oblivion. This is someone who grasped something profound about the nature of existence. His secretary, Helen Dukas, stayed with him through those final days. When she checked on him during the night, consumed with worry about his condition, Einstein told her, "You are really hysterical. I have to pass away sometime, and it doesn't really matter when." It truly doesn't matter when, because if time is just a misconception, when you pass away isn't as critical as the fact that your entire existence is woven into the eternal structure of reality, as Albert Einstein stated. Even in his final hours, Einstein kept working. He asked for his glasses, his writing tools, and his latest equations. He was focused on what he hoped would be his crowning achievement, a unified field theory, one that would seamlessly connect all the forces of nature. At 1:15 a.m. on April 18, 1955, Einstein spoke his last words. They were in German. Sadly, the nurse on duty didn't speak German, so his final words are lost to history forever. But we do know how he passed, peacefully, accepting, without fear, a testament to Albert Einstein's profound understanding. And here's something that most everyday folks never consider. If Einstein truly believed that the distinction between the past, the present, and the future was simply an illusion, then from his perspective, he wasn't really ending. He was merely transitioning to a part of the block universe he hadn't yet experienced. Or perhaps more accurately, he was always there, and he still is, right now. Let me delve a bit deeper into the physics, because this is where things get truly mind-bending, according to Albert Einstein's perspective. In the block universe, every moment of your life exists eternally. Your birth, your childhood, every single conversation you've ever had, each moment of joy, each moment of pain, they're all there, frozen in the very fabric of space-time. When we say that someone has passed away, what we're really saying is that their world line has come to an end. Their four-dimensional existence, stretching from birth to death, is complete. But that certainly doesn't mean it has vanished. It's still a part of the block universe. Think of it like a movie. When a character's story wraps up, they don't just disappear from the film. If you rewind, they're still there. Their scenes still exist. You just watched them earlier. A concept Albert Einstein understood deeply. Now, I know what you might be thinking. This sounds comforting, but does modern physics actually support this view? The answer is a resounding yes, and recent research has actually strengthened the case even further, adhering to the vision of Albert Einstein. Physicist Sabine Hossenfelder, one of today's most respected science communicators, has spoken extensively on this topic. She stresses that the fundamental laws of nature preserve information rather than destroy it. Even though information about someone who has passed away scatters, it remains an integral part of the universe. Hossenfelder says, "For all we know about the fundamental laws of nature, about Albert Einstein's theories, and about how our current theories work, it appears that our existence transcends the passage of time. There's something timeless about the information that makes up us and everything else in the universe. And I think that's a really deep spiritual insight, one that we get directly from studying the very foundations of physics." Notice that she even uses the word spiritual. A physicist referencing spiritual insights from physics, this perfectly mirrors what Albert Einstein himself experienced. He discovered in the equations of relativity a profound truth about existence, a truth that most religions only hint at. But here, I need to address a crucial objection, one often debated in discussions surrounding Albert Einstein's legacy. Some scholars argue that Einstein wasn't being entirely literal in his letter to the Besso family. Physicist Carlo Rovelli, for instance, has suggested that Einstein was speaking from emotion, not from a place of science. He was comforting a grieving family, not laying claim to a physics discovery. But this particular interpretation has problems. First, Einstein was known to be extremely precise with his words, especially when it came to physics. He very rarely said things he didn't mean. Second, we have numerous sources confirming that Einstein held the block universe view throughout his entire life. The Popper conversation is just one example. Third, Einstein's behavior in the face of his own death is completely consistent with someone who genuinely believed that time was an illusion. If Albert Einstein didn't really believe what he wrote, then why did he face death with such remarkable peace? Why did he refuse surgery, saying he would do it elegantly? Why did he tell his secretary that it didn't really matter when he passed? The simplest explanation is also the most profound. Einstein meant exactly what he said. He had uncovered something profound about death through physics, and that discovery gave him peace. Now, allow me to share something that makes this even more compelling, aligning with Albert Einstein's perspective. Einstein wasn't the first physicist to arrive at this conclusion. Hermann Minkowski, who was once Einstein's professor, was the one who first visualized space-time as a four-dimensional block. In a famous lecture back in 1908, Minkowski declared, "Henceforth space by itself and time by itself are doomed to fade away into mere shadows, and only a kind of union of the two will preserve an independent reality. Space and time by themselves are merely shadows. Only space-time is real, and in space-time, everything that ever was and ever will be exists together, a concept that Albert Einstein greatly explored." Kurt Gödel, arguably the greatest logician of the 20th century and a close friend of Albert Einstein's in Princeton, even took it a step further. He used Einstein's own equations to prove that, in certain universes, time travel to the past would be possible. His conclusion was that if the past can be revisited, it must still exist. And if the past exists, then the block universe is real. Einstein concurred with Gödel's mathematics, though he was troubled by the implications. The two men would often walk across the Princeton campus together, deeply debating these very questions about time and existence, discussions inspired by Albert Einstein's theories. So, Einstein was not alone in this line of thought. The greatest minds of his era arrived at similar conclusions, and modern physics has only strengthened the case, continually adding to the discoveries of Albert Einstein. Now, let me take this even deeper, because there's something about Albert Einstein's relationship with Besso that makes this story even more impactful. Albert Einstein and Besso first met in 1896, when they were both young men in Zurich. Besso was 6 years older, and he was the one who introduced Einstein to the works of Ernst Mach, a physicist whose ideas would later influence the theory of relativity itself. For nearly 60 years, they debated physics, philosophy, music, and the very meaning of life. When Einstein was developing his theory of special relativity, it was Besso he turned to for assistance. The two men would walk together, meticulously talking through the problems that seemed utterly unsolvable. And then, one evening, in May of 1905, following a particularly intense conversation with Besso, Einstein had his major breakthrough. The very next day, he went back to Besso and said, "Thank you. I have completely solved the problem." That problem was the very nature of time, and the solution would eventually lead Albert Einstein to a profound understanding of death itself. What's truly fascinating is that Einstein and Besso discussed these profound questions for decades. They exchanged letters throughout their lives, debating determinism, free will, and the very nature of reality. Besso was perhaps the only person who fully understood Albert Einstein's worldview. So, when Besso passed away, Albert Einstein wasn't just losing a friend, he was losing the one person who had been with him from the very beginning of his incredible journey into the mysteries of time. And his response, that letter about the illusion of time, was more than just comfort. It was the culmination of a lifetime of thinking together about these questions. There's something else I need to share with you about how Albert Einstein viewed death. Something that connects his physics to a much older philosophical tradition. Einstein was profoundly influenced by the philosopher Baruch Spinoza, who lived in the 17th century. Spinoza believed that God and nature were the same thing, that everything in the universe was part of one infinite substance. Einstein called Spinoza the greatest philosopher and said he believed in Spinoza's God. For Spinoza, individual death wasn't really death in an ultimate sense. Each person is a temporary modification of the infinite substance. When that modification ends, the substance continues. Nothing is truly lost. Einstein combined this philosophical view with his physics. The block universe gave him a scientific framework for understanding what Spinoza had intuited centuries earlier. Death isn't annihilation. It's simply the ending of one particular pattern within an eternal structure. This is why Einstein could face his own death with such remarkable equanimity. He didn't believe he was about to be erased. He believed he was about to transition, to become part of the larger whole, in a different way than he had been as a living individual. Some of you watching might be thinking this sounds too abstract, too philosophical. What does it really mean for your life? Let me make it practical. Think about a moment from your past, maybe your wedding day, maybe the birth of a child, maybe a sunset you watched with someone you loved in the block universe. That moment isn't gone. It's not a fading memory that exists only in your brain. That moment is real. It's embedded in the fabric of space-time as permanently as any star or galaxy. You aren't moving away from your past. You are always at your past. The version of you that experienced that moment is still there, still experiencing it, in some sense that transcends our normal perception of time. This isn't poetry. This is what the equations of relativity suggest about the nature of existence. Now, I know some of you might be skeptical. You might think this is just physicists getting carried away with their equations. After all, we experience time as flowing. We remember the past, but not the future. There must be something special about the present moment. Physicists have debated this for a century, and there's no consensus. But what I can tell you is that Einstein himself believed the block universe was real, and he wasn't alone among great scientists. Moreover, recent developments in physics have made the block universe more plausible, not less. The equations of general relativity treat all moments of time as equally real. Quantum mechanics, despite its strangeness, doesn't contradict this view, and cosmologists studying the ultimate fate of the universe often work within a block universe framework. The question isn't really whether the physics supports this view. The physics does support it. The question is what it means for human life and human death. And here's where Einstein's example becomes so powerful. He didn't just believe this intellectually, he embodied it. He faced death with complete peace, not because he was in denial, but because he had genuinely internalized what his physics revealed. In his final days at Princeton Hospital, Einstein endured severe pain from his internal hemorrhage. His secretary, Helen Dukas, noted that he bore the worst pain one can have with a smile, occasionally taking morphine. On his final day, during a respite from pain, he read the newspaper and discussed politics and scientific matters. This isn't the behavior of someone terrified of oblivion. This is someone at peace with the nature of existence, someone who understood that his story, though ending in the ordinary sense, was eternally inscribed in the fabric of reality. But let me ask you something. Does this idea comfort you or disturb you? Some people find the block universe terrifying. If everything's already laid out, do we have free will? Are we just watching a movie that was already filmed? Einstein wrestled with this question too. He was a determinist. He believed that everything happens according to natural law. He once said, "I do not believe in free will," but he didn't find this disturbing. He found it liberating. If everything is determined, then there's no point in regret. Your past actions were the only actions you could have taken. There's no point in anxiety about the future. Whatever will happen, will happen. All you can do is experience each moment as it comes. And here's the key insight. Even if the movie's already filmed, you're still experiencing it. Your consciousness is still moving through time, having genuine experiences of joy, love, discovery, and meaning. The fact that those experiences are embedded in a larger structure doesn't make them less real. It makes them more real. They are eternally real. Think about someone you've lost, a parent, a grandparent, a friend. According to the block universe, every moment you shared with them still exists. That dinner where you laughed until you cried, that conversation where they gave you advice that changed your life, that last time you saw them, Those moments are not gone. They're written into the fabric of reality itself, and they will exist for all of eternity. This is what Einstein understood. This is why he could write to Bezos' family with such confidence. This is why he could face his own death with elegance. If this video has shown you something you've never considered before, if you feel like you've discovered a truth that was hidden from you, then consider supporting this channel with super thanks. When you click that button, you're not just supporting content, you're supporting the spread of ideas that matter, ideas that change how we see life and death, ideas that have been waiting in Einstein's letters for 70 years, waiting for someone to share them with the world. You're part of the small group of people who seek deeper truth. That is rare, and it deserves to be recognized. Let me bring this full circle. Einstein discovered something about death that changed everything. He discovered that from the perspective of physics, death isn't an ending in the way we think. It's more like reaching the final chapter of a book that will exist in the library forever. This doesn't mean death isn't significant. Your world-line ending is a real event. The people who love you will grieve. Life will go on without your physical presence, but according to the physics Einstein helped create, your entire existence, every moment of it is preserved in the structure of space-time itself. You are not temporary. You are eternal, not in some vague mystical sense, but in the precise mathematical sense that follows directly from the equations of relativity. This is huge. Einstein faced death knowing this. He asked for his equations because he wanted to keep contributing right until the very end. He refused surgery because he saw no point in artificially extending what was already complete. He spoke his final words in German, words we will never know, and then he transitioned from one part of the block to whatever comes next. Think about that. Or perhaps more accurately, he is still there, in his study at Princeton, walking with Gödel, writing that letter to Bezos' family, playing his violin, developing relativity at the patent office, with his longtime confidant, Michel. It all exists. All of it is real, right now, absolutely. This is what Einstein discovered about death. This is the secret that physics reveals, but rarely shares. And now, you know it too. The question now is, what will you do with this knowledge? Will you continue fearing death as an absolute ending, or will you begin to see it, as Einstein did, as a transition within a larger structure, where every moment is preserved forever? Will you continue grieving your lost loved ones, as if they have been erased from existence, or will you take comfort, knowing that every moment you shared with them is still real, still happening, in some eternal sense, that transcends our ordinary perception of time? This is profound. Einstein gave us more than physics. He gave us a new way of understanding existence itself, a way that transforms how we see death, time, and the meaning of our lives. It's a total game changer. And now, I want to hear from you. Einstein said the distinction between past, present, and future is only a deeply ingrained misconception. Do you believe him? Does the block universe comfort you or disturb you? And if your loved ones are somehow still there, preserved in the fabric of space-time, how does that change how you think about them? Comment below, tell me eternal. If you believe Einstein was right, that death is not the end, tell me gone forever. If you think this is just beautiful physics, that doesn't really apply to human experience. I read every comment in the first 2 hours, and I will respond to as many as I can, promise. Because this is the conversation that matters. This is what Einstein wanted us to understand. And now, 70 years after his passing away, his message is finally reaching the people who are ready to hear it. You are one of those people, and that means something.